Some months ago I started to make this segmented bowl. Now it's time to try that again. One of the main issues was actually me, because I tried to make this bowl too big. So it's pretty deep and I don't have a Toolrest that's made for making bowls. So it doesn't reach deep enough into the bowl. I've mounted the bowl into the top of the lathe. As you can see, the Toolrest is pretty short, and when I want to turn in the center or at the bottom of the bowl, the distance between the Toolrest, especially when I turn it a little bit so I can reach there, the distance between the Toolrest and the bottom is pretty long, so the risk of a catch is pretty high. You can see one over there with this tool that was pretty bad. As this is beechwood, it's pretty hard too and not ideal for turning a bowl. But this was actually my second catch. The first one I managed to turn out, but when the second happened I decided to quit this project for now and wanted to look for a Toolrest that's made for bowl turning. But as this is a mini lathe, the diameter of the shaft is pretty small and I couldn't find any Toolrest with this diameter shaft. So I put the bowl to the side and made some other projects until now. You may have seen on Instagram that I started with metalwork, so I thought of making my own Toolrest for bowl turning. So I have these two bars to make the Toolrest, the thinner one for the shaft and the thicker one for the tool to rest on. As this will be a bowl turning Toolrest, this one needs to be bent. I don't have much experience yet, but as this is 25mm, I think it's pretty hard to bend. So I talked to my local welding supplier and he told me how he would do that. Let me explain that. This is actually the drawing for the bowl. So here's what he does. That's better. He actually uses a pallet with gas bottles on top. So yeah, these are the gas bottles. It's pretty heavy. And then he uses, what is it called? Let me do that. Oh, a rim. He uses an old rim and just put it in front of it. So this is the old rim, you can imagine that. What he does is he takes the steel bar, puts it under the pallet and over the old rim to bend it around the rim. So I don't have an old rim and I don't have a pallet with gas bottles on top. But what I have is an empty pallet and a piece of a log. So let's see what we can do with it.
So the idea is to drive with the car on top of the pallet to make it heavy enough. I'm not sure if it is heavy because there's just about 400 kilogram on each tire and there's only one tire on the pallet, so it's not that much.
To get the car on top of the pallet, I used two big wedges which were laying around. As this pallet isn't in the best conditions, I screwed an old board on top just to make sure everything is strong enough. By the way, the rusty tube in the front I can slide over the bar to extend the lever. I played a little bit around with the position of the lock to get the best leverage. I also tried to put a little bar on top of the lock to get a decent bending point. By using also the pipe, I just lift the car. As this didn't work out till the end of the day, I decided to grind the bar a little bit down to make it easier to bend. And the next try. It was still pretty hard to bend, but there was a little bit of movement, so it's better than nothing. To also be able to change the height of the bending point, I also used blocks instead of the old log. The rusty pipe also made it a little bit easier. As the bending angle now got bigger and bigger, I needed to raise the bending point. So I put more and more blocks under it. There was a point where the little tower got too high, so I had to change to this method. I stick the bar under the pallet and bend it towards my car. Of course, I've put a piece of wood under the tip of the bar to not scratch the pavement and get in trouble with my parents.
So now that I've managed to bend the bar, I want to drill a hole into it for the shaft to position it during the welding and probably make it a stronger joint too.
As I told you, I don't have much experience with metal yet, but I thought it would be a good idea to not drill that hole at once. So I worked my way up in 4 steps, and the first time in my life I used cutting oil. The next step was to shorten the shaft and to weld it on. This is actually just the second welding project that I've done. The first one was the welding card you can see in the right corner or on Instagram. But actually you can't call that Toolrest project a welding project, as it's just one pretty small weld. First I just fixed it with a small welding point. So I was able to adjust it and then fixed it with 2 more welding points. Then I welded all around, first without filler rod and then with filler rod. But you shouldn't listen to me if you want to learn anything about welding, but maybe you can tell me what I should improve. By the way, I know it's not ideal to weld on wooden boards as they catch fire, but it's the only thing I have now. But even if this was just one pretty simple weld, I managed to screw that up. It probably would have been strong enough, but it was just ugly, so I grinded it down and tried again. It wasn't perfect now, but at least a little bit better. Next step was to trim it off and grind everything smooth. And unfortunately to trim it off another time, but then the Toolrest was ready to use. So let's get back to the bowl. I first turned the inside and the bottom of the bowl. I wanted to have this done before I do the rest. It was much better now, but still not perfect. I think I have to improve my wood turning skills and also change the angle that I sharpen the tool. After the outside shape was done, it was time for sanding. I started with 120 sandpaper and made my way up to 800, just because it's the finest I have. If you're wondering what's holding the dust extractor, it's the brand new Festool MH2000, which of course means multi-hands 2000. You can order it by calling 01. Before oiling the pot, I like to clean the shop roughly from dust and the bowl with compressed air. I don't know what you see here on camera on the lathe, I didn't see that from my angle. Now it comes to maybe the best part of this project. The colors of especially the red heart of this bowl was pretty awesome already without oil, but with oil it still gets much better. The bowl is still held by the chuck and not finished at the outside bottom. To finish this, I like to use the sanding disc to press the bowl the other way around against it with the tailstock. I take off the rough sanding paper and instead put on a piece of an old t-shirt or anything else to not scratch the finished surface. Now I can turn down the bottom to size. Before I take the bowl off the lathe, I took the chance to also sand the outside bottom, as this works pretty fast on the lathe. The last tiny bit I just cut off by hand. Sanding it flush with a small eccentric sander. Here the MH2000 comes pretty handy again. And there's just a little bit of oiling left and then to wipe everything down. So now it's finally finished after more than half a year, but I'm pretty happy how it turned out in the end. If you're interested in how I got to the segmented piece I've started with in the beginning of this video, I do that pretty much the same as Frank Howard does. You should probably know him, but if not, I'll link you a video of him in the description where he makes a segmented bowl. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments. Thanks for watching.